walk with me on a brief journey. I'm going to take you guys back to the 2020-2021 season. And we're going to pretend this is what your fantasy team looks like. You have one player who finished in the top 10 in 9-cat leagues, averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists, almost a steal, a block and a half almost, and then almost 2.5 threes. Efficient shooting, incredible category league player. Another guy who averaged 31 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, over a steal, over 2 threes. Also an efficient shooter, not quite as efficient, but still very efficient. And then another player who his numbers were a little bit down, but he still averaged 26 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, almost a steal, almost 2 threes, and was also an efficient shooter. That is the makings of a championship fantasy team. It's a nice core to build around. You would think that in the NBA, that would also be a very nice core to build around, but you're probably gonna have to make up for a few weaknesses here and there. But if you build that team out right, you have 3 guys that can score 30 a night. That seems like a difficult team to beat, especially in the playoffs. You think you can beat a team 4 times that has 3 guys that can score like that? I don't know if you can, but the team has to be built out right. The players have to sacrifice a little bit, has to be well coached. It's not all you need. You still have to fill out the rest of your team. 3 players aren't going to win you a fantasy league. 3 players aren't going to win you an NBA championship, but that's what the Suns tried to do. And just as a spoiler, those 3 players were KD, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. Surprise, surprise. I know if you saw the title of this episode already, then I'm sure it was not hard to guess. So we're going to take a look at what the Suns did, maybe give a few suggestions on what they could have done differently, or just critique and offer no solutions, because that's fun too. And then take a look ahead at what this team could look like next year and who is worth eyeing in dynasty leagues. And as another spoiler, there are not too many players on this roster that are super intriguing in dynasty leagues, but there are a couple, and we'll definitely hit on them. And then we'll probably also play the hypothetical game of what the Suns could do to kind of turn this thing around. And it's probably going to be a multi-year process, but what can they do to become a competitive team again, or to truly become a contender? Before we get into that, I wanted to remind you that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. We've got baseball season in full swing. We've got the NBA and NHL playoffs going on right now. And there's more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We've got Game 2 of the Celtics-Knicks series, as well as Game 2 of the Thunder-Nuggets series going on tonight. And with the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB to the NHL to UFC, BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. Let's talk about the Suns. So we'll first look at who they have on their roster next season. So they obviously have most of their money tied up in KD, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. Vasilij Micic is on a team option, which I imagine will be declined. He didn't play much after they acquired him from Charlotte. Mason Plumlee, Tyus Jones, Damian Lee, Monte Morris, and Bol Bol will all be unrestricted free agents. Plumlee will find somewhere to be a veteran, whether he's playing 0 minutes per game or 10 to 15. He'll go rebound the ball. Tyus Jones, I think, ideally as a backup point guard. The Suns tried to make things work with him as their starting point guard, but wasn't super effective. I think he's a player that when he's on the floor, he's playing a significant role. He's a good fantasy player because he doesn't turn the ball over and he gets assists. He's maybe not the best playmaker, but he's an incredibly efficient passer. But the Suns chose to switch things up because they weren't winning games. And when Tyus Jones is coming off the bench, he still has some value, but he's best in a starting role. We just need him to find a situation where a team feels the same way about him being their starting point guard. If he can find that, great option in fantasy. If he's coming off the bench, has some streaming value. Bol Bol, I mean, he's going to have upside. He also just needs to find a situation where he is going to play consistently, maybe on a tanking slash rebuilding team. If he can find somewhere where he can have a consistent role, because there was the report that Mike Budenholzer benched him after there was like an altercation. You could see a video of it. I forgot exactly who was getting into it, but there was some sort of, I don't even want to say fight. We'll say altercation. And Bobo was just shooting layups, shooting little floaters, not getting in, not defending his teammates. And apparently Coach Bud benched him for the rest of the season because of it. So I imagine that he's gone, but Coach Bud's also gone. So maybe something changed and they want him back. We'll see. And then Jalen Bridges, Colin Gillespie, and Ty Washington are all restricted free agents after playing on two-way deals with hold on. Yeah, Colin Gillespie. I feel like it's Gillespie. I'm just not seeing something to verify that. Anyways, he was really good last month of the season, kind of moved into the starting lineup. I think that's enough for him to earn like a standard contract. Hopefully back with the Suns, but with a new head coach coming in, maybe they don't value him the same way. So maybe he doesn't play a significant role. I don't know. I think it was a good stretch for him. And had Coach Bud been back, it would have been a nice scenario for him to step in and just continue to play a significant role. Maybe he doesn't start again next year, but now I'm not sure. And maybe he did enough to earn a standard contract elsewhere. But I don't know if he plays a significant role the way he did. I don't know. I think he did enough to get a payday though. So shout out to Colin Gillespie. None of those sound right. Either way, it's fine. We'll figure it out eventually. As far as their draft picks, they don't have their own first. They have picks 29 and 52 this year. Which, if we look back to last year, if you want a little bit of encouragement, if you're a Suns fan, and just looking for a glimmer of hope, they got Ryan Dunn at pick 28 last year, and now they have pick 29 this year. And then the year before, maybe it was 2022 even. Nope, 2 years. So 2023, they got Tumani Kamara with pick 52. And that's right around where they're picking again. So if you want a little bit of optimism there for the Suns, there is your glimmer of hope. They have drafted well from about the same spot they are picking this year. So that's pretty cool. Just looking at Tankathon, I mean, this is a deep class. There are going to be a lot of players that they'll have options at pick 29. There's some players just like a few picks before. You have Walter Clayton Jr., Carter Bryant, Yaxel Lindeberg. Tankathon currently has Cam Jones, guard from Marquette, going at pick 29. Janai Barum at 31. Boogie Flan 33. Ryan Kalkbrenner at 35. Like, there are guys that could step in and make an impact from day one that Phoenix can get with pick 29. Or they can trade the pick. Who knows what they'll do? They might end up doing that. And as far as their future picks, yikes. So they have it's pretty complicated. Basically, they've traded all of them away. I think they have like the least favorable. They have a pick in every draft. And then for like 2026, it's just a swap with Washington with it's pretty complex. 2027, they get a first, but it's believed like the least favorable between Utah, Cleveland, Minnesota. Yeah, Fanspo has a nice layout of every detail for all their picks, but basically they don't control their own first until 2032, because then in 2031 it's an unprotected first to Utah. It's mind-boggling the way that unprotected firsts get sent out, because like in theory you could be a GM and say, hey, I don't make a win now move, I'm not going to be around to make a pick in 2031. So like it makes sense to trade that first especially if you're trying to keep your job, but also just what that first could value. Because in the moment, it's like, yeah, sure, that's 7 or 8 years down the road. Like maybe we're a championship team right now, like then, and that's gonna be pick 30. But maybe he's pick five, maybe he's pick one. With the way that the Suns were operating, sure they were under the assumption that hey, we are going to still have Devin Booker playing basketball then. I mean, it'll be kind of the later stages of his career, but we might have championships by then. We have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal. Like we have a championship team. But now it's like, shoot, things are getting messy now. They might have to start rebuilding, but now they don't have any picks to rebuild. So I'm assuming things will get a little bit better by 2031, but they're gonna have to make some good picks in later rounds. All right. Let's look at I don't know, man. There's a couple exciting guys, including one of my favorite players from this last draft, Ryan Dunn, who averaged 6.9 points, 3.6 rebounds. Didn't really do as much defensively as we were kind of, I guess, expecting him to, considering his insane block and steal rate in college. I mean, mostly it was the blocks that were insane. The steals were pretty good. And then he also averaged 1.1 threes, which was the surprising aspect because he was an abysmal shooter in college. Like really, really bad. Just pulling up his numbers here. He averaged in 27.5 minutes per game, 1.3 steals and 2.3 blocks for a 6'8" wing. Insane, insane numbers. Took 1 3 a game, shot 20% from three. Yikes. So it was kind of like, oh, this guy's going to come in and immediately he fits in well with this team. They need more defenders. They need guys that aren't really going to contribute much on offense or don't need the ball to make an impact. Because you have three guys again that are potentially elite scorers, and only two of them that actually were, but three guys that have that potential. So they don't need more scoring. They need somebody that can come in and play defense. And then the idea was, okay, he'll play defense. The defensive stats will be nice for fantasy. He'll play as much as his jump shot allows. If he can either, be like a roll man and score that way, and be involved as a screener, then there's a role for him on offense. And all he needs to do is hit the occasional catch and shoot three. And then he came out and pretty early on was able to shoot the ball a lot better than what we were expecting him to do. Again, hit over 1 3 per game. The last few games of the year, last 4 games, he hit a total of 11 threes in 4 games. Like he's not going to have or see that as many shot attempts as he did in those games often. Like this is not going to happen. He's not a high volume offensive guy, but the defensive stats will start to come. Like they'll be there eventually. Just looking at it, like the steals were much improved. The last 6 games of the year, he had 10 steals. The blocks still haven't been there yet, which is kind of weird. Just based on like looking at his numbers from college, like it just hasn't translated the way that we kind of imagined it would. But it was only his first year, so I'm not too concerned about that. I really do think that he's a guy that could average over 1 3, 1 steal, 1 block. And with the way that he shot the ball as a rookie, I think he could get to maybe 1.5 of each. That's very valuable in category leagues. A well-rounded player like that. I think what's going to be interesting is how the situation plays out in Phoenix over the next few years. I mean, really, just this summer is going to be a big step for them because, I mean, they fired Mike Budenholzer, so they will be hiring or have a 4th coach in 4 years because it was Monty Williams, Frank Vogel, Mike Budenholzer, and now someone else. And how does this new coach value Ryan Dunn? That'll be a factor to his development. Maybe the new coach is like, I really don't care that much about defense, but like place a value on being a high octane offense. And Ryan Dunn, like it's great that you're improving your shot, but I like we have Grayson Allen on the roster, and he's a much better shooter, and he's a good enough defender. We don't need you as an elite defender. It could be a coach that's like, no, we are going to make sure to play defense so that way Devin Booker can carry us on offense, and we're all just going to defend. Ryan Dunn, you're great at that. You're going to play a lot. So we'll see. The hire there is a factor. What happens with Kevin Durant is a factor, which we'll get into. I want to make sure to highlight a couple of the younger guys before we talk about Kevin Durant. When I say a couple, I think I literally mean two. Because the other guy I want to talk about is the other rookie on this team, which is Oso Ighodaro. If I can pull this up. There was, again, just like Ryan Dunn, flashes. Played 17.1 minutes per game, 4.2 points, 3.6 rebounds, 1.2 assists. Had a handful of starts. Some other games where he came off the bench and played a big role. I mean, Phoenix needed a center. They tried trading. They tried Nurkic. That was a disaster. I know they wanted to really move off DeAndre Ayton, but I think that the trade that they made was, goodness, very strange. Like, looking back, they gave up the best player in the deal in Toumani Camara. And they had just drafted him in the second round. But I think even Ayton would have been better than Nurkic. So pretty interesting. They ended up trading Nurkic to Charlotte. Got back Nick Richards, who I think had some good stretches in Charlotte. I don't think he was quite as good with Phoenix, but I think they were expecting him to be more than he was. He was a backup, when everyone was healthy. Like, Mark Williams is good, so it's not to discredit him, but he was a backup on a lottery team. So they wanted him to come in and be a championship level center. It wasn't his role. So Mason Plumlee ended up playing a lot. Ighodaro ended up playing a lot. I don't see a reason why Ighodaro won't continue to play a significant role off the bench next year. I don't imagine that he moves into a starting role, but I think he's an intriguing guy, worth keeping an eye on. He had a couple games where he was able to get 3 and 4 assists. It's valuable as a 7-footer. He had a couple 4-block games. Not a great rebounder, but decent. Yeah, there's some tools there, and I think that the opportunity in Phoenix is enough to at least keep an eye on this guy. But as far as other players to talk about with the Suns, a lot of it is going to come down to, because there isn't too many just young upside guys that you're it doesn't really matter. We want to take swings on these guys because this is the path. This is what they can do. You just need to be patient. A lot of these guys are just going to kind of depend on what they do with the head coach and what they do with Kevin Durant. Or they're players that it doesn't matter at all, but we know what they are. Devin Booker. Does not matter what happens. They could hire a random person off the street, legendary head coach, anyone in between. Devin Booker's going to get you 25, 5 and 5, bare minimum. Or he was 26, 4 and 7 last year. So maybe he won't get 5 rebounds. 4 rebounds. Cool. We know what Devin Booker's going to be. We know what Kevin Durant's going to be regardless of where he plays. Maybe if he gets traded to a situation where there's a lot of talent around him, then maybe he dials it back a tad. But there isn't a situation I can think of where he's going to be traded to a team and not be the best scorer. A realistic landing spot for him. So it's say hypothetically he gets traded to Houston. I don't know exactly what a trade package looks like, but even if Kevin Durant just literally signed with Houston tomorrow, he's the best scorer on that team. It's why would you want Kevin Durant to be the one that sacrifices? Maybe a little to fit in, shot 18 shots per game last year. Maybe he shoots 16 and a half, 17. Cool. KD is going to be KD. Everybody else is going to be very dependent on either where they sign, in the case of Tyus Jones, or what this roster looks like. Because Bradley Beal, we can briefly talk about Bradley Beal because I'm sure that he's been very frustrating. Frankly, it's a nice way of putting it. 17 points, 3.3 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.9 threes. The numbers aren't as bad as it feels like his play was, which is a positive. And then the other factor here is if KD gets traded, say it is Houston, say the return is Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, I don't know how many picks, something else to fill contract. That's just a hypothetical. I don't really care if it's fair or not. Say that Jalen Green and Jabari Smith come back in a deal. Well, now you have Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Jalen Green. So one, that's not necessarily the best for Jabari Smith, but also you got three guys that need to learn how to share the ball. Or not need to learn how to. I mean, I'd assume Devin Booker's kind of the point guard, but you're three guys that need the ball in their hands. Probably the more respectful way of putting that. So then how does that look? Does Beal move up and become the number 2 scoring option on that team? Or do the Suns say, ooh, we need, like, Jalen Green has more upside. He's significantly younger. We'd love for Jalen Green to learn from Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, but he's kind of more the future. Bradley Beal, you're still our third option. That's a scenario. If they trade KD in a trade package that brings back, say, like Tari Eason and Jabari Smith, I don't think that's something that Houston would want to do, to part with both those guys, like similar like skill sets. That's, you know what I mean? Long defensive wings. There we go. Where Bradley Beal's now the number 2 scoring option, I think he could bounce back. I think he could have, like, get back over 20 points per game, get over 4 assists per game. He's going to have to be healthy, and that has been an issue, and he's aging, so it's not going to get easier, but I'm not fully, like, sold on the idea that Bradley Beal just stinks now. I think that he has not played well with the Suns, but I think he still has more in the tank. Not totally out on Bradley Beal. It may even be a good opportunity to buy low on him, to try and, I don't know, get it before any deals are made that kind of would trade away Kevin Durant or just make this roster look very different. But I'm also not going to say that I'm super, super optimistic about Bradley Beal. I just think that there is something there, something more than what it feels like Twitter will allow you to believe. Twitter would have you believe that Bradley Beal just stinks. It's not true. Bradley Beal does not stink. He just needs a better situation, frankly. And I think that if there is a scenario where KD is gone and there aren't any or many high volume scores to come back, we could see Bradley Beal bounce back. I still think he's capable of playing competitive basketball. And since the Suns don't have the rights to their own draft pick for like 7 years, there's no reason for Bradley Beal or for them to not try and win games. Bradley Beal helps them do that. Royce O'Neal's a solid veteran. He'll continue to be that. Cody Martin's there. I think he'll be healthy, or he had a healthy, or he will have a healthy offseason. So he should be healthy to start next year, which is cool. He hasn't been very healthy last couple of years. I think Grayson Allen is a guy that could actually have a bounce back year next year. I think it's going to depend heavily on what the rest of the roster looks like and what the head coach is. And I think he's the best example of that on this team. Because we saw what he did on one season under Frank Vogel. It was the best season of his career. 13.5 points, 3.9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.7 threes, was a starter for most of the year. And then Mike Budenholzer comes in. Coach Bud also coached him in Milwaukee, moved him back to the bench. So his minutes dropped by 9 per game, and then points dropped to 10.6, rebounds dropped to 3, assists dropped to 2.1, threes dropped to 2.3, field goal percentage and free throw percentage both took significant hits. Could he have just had a hot season during the 2023-2024 season? Sure. But I think also we saw what he could do as a starter, and then things changed this last year and he was a bench player. If a new coach comes in and says, I mean, even if whether Tyus Jones is there or not, and says Devin Booker is going to be our starting point guard, and then Grayson Allen on the perimeter with Bradley Beal, like, that's going to give Booker space. Like we want to operate with our 3 elite scorers. This is again under, I guess, in this scenario, Kevin Durant's back, but he might not be back, so that could change the lineup as well. But a point where Grayson Allen is starting, and they emphasize getting him good looks from 3. We saw what he could do. He was excellent. Had some like a bunch of different games where he had 8 or 9 threes. So there's still some value there. Not a huge dynasty investment. He'll be 30 to start next season. But I think he's a guy you could probably get for pretty cheap that could really fill it up from 3 and then give you a couple other things here and there. Probably doesn't take much in a dynasty league. And I really do think that it just depends on the coach. And it may be something that we don't really know what that looks like even until closer to opening night. So, or maybe after opening night. So it is kind of a hard thing to predict unless the coach comes out and says, no, we want Grayson Allen to start, or there's other moves that are made that it's obvious he's a starter. I mean, if we look at like Detroit last season or this past season, they signed Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley. In my mind, like, okay, cool, Malik Beasley's the starter, Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench. They just chose to start, or JB Bickerstaff chose to start Tim Hardaway all season. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I mean, they ended up having a great season. Malik Beasley was better, but he did really well as a reserve. So it's going to come down to a head coach there. That may not be something that we know immediately. That's fine. I think Grayson Allen can bounce back. Again, Booker's going to be Booker. Not too much to talk about there. I'm just going to put KD's face on the screen just in case you're watching so that you know who we're talking about. I think if we're looking at trying to let's look at the teams that could trade for Kevin Durant. Like, who would it make sense for them to trade for Kevin Durant? I think the Rockets really are the main team that come to mind. That have both the assets and the need to trade for a player at his age. And his scoring ability. They need his scoring ability, and I think they would be fine with a player's age. Maybe I'm just totally wrong on that, and they're like, we don't really want to. I guess the other factor here, and this could be for both Houston and for pretty much every team. I don't know if teams are going to want to trade assets for Kevin Durant when Giannis Antetokounmpo is still available. Wouldn't shock me if KD was kind of put on the back burner until after Giannis was moved. Unless there's a team that's just like, I'm probably not going to win a bidding war for Giannis. Let me go and see if I can make a move. And then the Suns are like, yeah, we just kind of want to get what we can. We like this offer. Let's do it. That could happen. I could see, trying to think of teams in the East. It's not really making too much sense for a lot of teams. Maybe Houston, could Memphis, maybe Dallas, maybe. I guess if somebody needs to, Nico Harrison definitely needs to make a move to kind of fix his reputation. Nothing will do it, but winning a championship definitely makes things a little bit better. And if you're able to get KD to pair with Kyrie, AD, and some really good defenders, you have a chance that everybody stays healthy. Big if, probably will burn in his face. I feel like I'm like almost like penciling in my mind that KD is going to be a Rocket. And it's interesting because they have the pieces to make whatever move they want to make. I think that if somebody's like Houston can trade for Giannis if they want, but then who does that leave to trade for Kevin Durant? I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm excited for the regulars, or I guess the regular season's been over. Playoffs to end, so the rumors start heating up. I think maybe when we get closer to the draft, rumors heating up about a Kevin Durant trade, or maybe Mike Budenholzer's gone and he's good and he's just going to stay. I think that's a scenario, but I don't know. There isn't too much else to talk about with the Suns. So to avoid me just talking in circles, because I will do that, I'm going to go ahead and call it an episode. That's going to do it for this episode of the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Next time we will talk about the Bulls. take a look at what they did this season. They finally did a little bit of made some trades, made some moves for the future. Finally, been begging for them. We'll dive into that next time. If you feel led, like, subscribe, comment, do whatever else on this episode would help me out a ton, help us out a ton. You can follow me on Twitter at NoUrban22. That's going to do it for this episode, and I will see you next time.